So ManageEngine, you've recently published a report, which I think was produced on your behalf by Vance and Bourne, and the name was IT at Work 2022, 2022 and Beyond. And I think that the sort of headline finding is that the vast majority of companies are on their way towards decentralizing their IT. So can you give us some idea of maybe why that is, and also what decentralized IT means? I mean, are we talking sort of hybrid infrastructure, people working from it? Yeah, what does it encompass?
What we have seen in the last 2 years, particularly a pandemic coming into picture, which took a lot of the organization unexpected in the way the work happens. So we saw a digital transformation happening in the business processes itself, where the way employees work in terms of working from different locations, take a hybrid approach, and the priority of IT organization has completely changed from just looking at IT as such, but rather make sure the data is accessible for employees from different locations. So obviously adopting cloud is one route, and at the same time, we could also see organizations having their legacy systems and some business critical applications within their infrastructure. So there is a hybrid approach which has been going on, and obviously making employees connected together and also access data to serve the customer for business continuity is what the current trend which we see in the industry. So one of the specific reasons why we took on the survey is to see how this decentralization happens and how customers are adopting to it. And we could see that almost more than 60% of organizations have already taken the decentralization approach, and almost more than 30% of the organizations are in the process of actually making the decentralization.
Okay, and in terms of some of the sort of reasons behind, I mean, you've outlined sort of what's going on, but in terms of the actual specifics, I think the survey highlighted that if you like, non-IT people have got an increased level, I guess, mainly through their their home life, if you like. They've got a bit better knowledge of IT devices, or at least they think they have, and they're bringing this into the workplace. So is that well, I suppose the main question there, is that a good, this is, I guess, bring your own device type activity, but it seems to be pervading more through the organization. Is that right? And is that a good thing, or is a little learning, a dangerous thing?
So that's in fact a very good question. But if you look at with the current way of the work happening in a hybrid model, they have better visibility of the IT technology in the last 2 years. And that also actually facilitates in terms of giving autonomy to the individual departments in terms of making their own decisions, be it buying an application or buying a device on their own, or having their own technology to serve their customers. I think it's a good thing for organizations to adopt this decentralization in terms of accessing data or having their own devices. But it's all about having an informed decision by putting IT in center. So it's a well-planned and informed decision so that security is not compromised. In a way, we would say it's a good thing for organizations to take the decentralization approach, provided you also keep IT informed on those decisions.
And sort of in a similar vein, collaboration. I know for years everyone's sort of railed against IT silo or departmental silos, and nobody talks to each other. But there does seem now a genuine sort of move towards collaboration across departments, which again I'm thinking is got to be a good thing.
Right. So in fact, if you look back 10 years before, IT was actually working on silos. They were confined to taking care of the infrastructure, managed devices. But the moment we talk about digital transformation, right, IT is kind of like slowly moving towards business alignment. That means it has to empower other departments when it comes to digital transformation, so that you have the data access from different locations, and also a lot of the data on the cloud, and some of the data on the hybrid. So the collaboration from an IT standpoint is very much required, be it from a monitoring perspective, or be it from a security control perspective, or be it sharing access privileges on what to access and what not to access. I think collaboration is very much required for a successful digital transformation to happen. In fact, on our survey, we could see that in the last 2 years, particularly, more than 88% of the respondents have said that the collaboration is actually getting much better compared to the previous years.
Okay, and one of the most important things to make this all happen, I guess, is you mentioned, I think earlier, the IT department needs to be centralized, but the survey perhaps suggests that that's not happening as much. So I'm not saying people are eliminating the IT, but that there needs to be more involvement, maybe the IT department recognition that they're the important people, rather than people going it sort of circumnavigating them or doing their own thing. Is that fair?
Absolutely. If you look at, in fact, in our survey, almost 20% of the IT decision makers have said that they have not been involved. But on the other side, if you look at, more than 80% of them has said that IT has been involved in the decision making. So we see that as more of a transformation happening in the industry, because if you look at, pandemic is something which was totally unexpected, and the priorities of IT as well as the priorities of other departments have changed, because it became business continuity was the priority at that time. But I think given that as and when the organizations become more mature when it comes to adopting digital transformation, I think the involvement of IT, or involving them in either the decision making process or in the consulting process, is bound to happen. We see that as more of a transition challenge, but as it evolves, it's going to get better.
Okay, and in terms of the importance of the IT department, I know we're going on about it a bit, but there's some suggestion, again, I think in the survey, that if you don't involve the IT department properly, your ability to innovate is being harmed. And maybe the supplementary to that is, I mean, do people need to understand whether the IT department is there to drive innovation, or is it merely there to sort of sit on the sidelines and assist innovation when people call on them to help? What's the right approach?
Right. If you look at in the past, IT has been always looked more of assisting in the innovation rather than getting involved in the decision making process itself. In fact, in our survey, if you look at, more than 86% of them have said that if you involve IT in the initial decision making process itself, then it leads to better innovation in the organization, because the digital transformation or decentralization, the whole idea of having this concept is to actually have a better innovation, so that you make better business decisions and eventually serve customers better and stay ahead of competition. But 59% of the respondents have said that today, if you look at, IT has been only involved in the assistance mode in terms of assisting on the innovation, but not involved in a decision-making process. But I think having a very strong leadership team involved in the initial stage itself could lead to a better innovation, because once IT is involved in the initial stages, then it leads to have a well-planned, informed decentralization strategy, which could cover upon multiple aspects, right from giving the privileges or having a security control or building a reliable support system or having a regulated structure in terms of adhering to the guidelines of the industry. All those things can be taken up upfront, discussed. So it kind of like leads to a better planned system in terms of the go-to innovation plan.
Okay, and I think you mentioned earlier about security, but just to reinforce the point, with if you like, more departments, more individuals within an organization being empowered to do more decision making around IT, it's still crucial that they do go through the IT department because security, nobody else knows security like the IT department, and clearly it's paramount. Is that right to say?
Absolutely right. So if you look at when it comes to decentralization strategy, definitely there is autonomy given to each of the department. But when it comes to the decision making of that particular department, they take decisions based on what is their priority. Should we have a better collaboration within the team, or should we have more data to serve the customers better, or should we have a mechanism to innovate better? These are the things which could be a priority for a particular department. Given a chance, uh, the decision is completely taken by them. However, security is something which a lot of us believe today that completely goes to the control of the IT. In fact, more than 75% of respondents have said that it's IT which has the complete control when it comes to decision making on the security. So it's important that IT team is involved in the initial stage itself, so that they have a better say in terms of ensuring their infrastructure, their data, the personal information, as well as the customer information, everything is secured in terms of building up the right process from the beginning stage itself. Absolutely, yes, the IT security ownership becomes even more bigger, spreads across multiple departments when you put across the decentralization strategy.
Okay, and then bearing in mind what we've talked about so far, I mean, is everything, rosy in the garden between the business and the IT department, or is there a bit of friction? Do the IT department maybe in some organizations feel a bit undervalued, or conversely, do the other departments think the IT people are always trying to get involved and meddle? What's the sort of landscape? What's the relationship you found in the survey?
So I think we come across during the initial stage of digital transformation, uh, it's quite natural that the decision making power goes to the individual department, and IT kind of like feels they have been not involved. But naturally, when the transformation evolves, uh, then the involvement of IT comes into picture. So this is more of an initial teething challenges is what we see, where there is some kind of a friction happening between IT department as well as the business decision making department. But over a period of time, when the process matures and it evolves, I think the collaboration becomes even more better. And that's precisely what the survey also says. The collaboration is getting better over the last 2 years, and it's bound to enhance more or even get better down the track. So
Okay,
that's
so
more of an initial issue is what we see.
yeah, and so in sort of summarizing what we've talked about so far, IT decentralization is fundamentally a good thing, but there could be more improvement, or certainly organizations need to make sure that it's sort of planned and implemented properly. And if that is done in the correct way, it's almost guaranteed that the IT department, if you like, will be the central hub off which sort of everyone else feeds. Is that a reasonable summarization?
Absolutely, yes. So when it comes to digital transformation or decentralization strategy, uh, this is not a very simple process. It involves multiple departments, multiple stakeholders, and sometimes it ends up as a make or break for an organization. So a well-informed, a well-planned decision is very much required. Uh, has to be a step taken with all the stakeholders involved in the initial stage itself, which also does include IT. So once you have a well-planned information, having all the stakeholders involved, then there's chances that like you cover all aspects of the business. Because for particular department, it could be innovation. For particular department, it could be taking care of the customers. But you also have to make sure the fundamentals when it comes to having the availability of the infrastructure, taking care of the security aspects, making sure you adhere to the regulations. All those things are even more important as the business grows. So a well-informed decision, having everybody into the system before we implement or roll out the project is very much involved. And once you do that, even though each department has its own autonomy in terms of decision making, the role of IT becomes even more bigger, because if you look at once you go on the digital transformation process, the data is not only confined to your data center, it's all over. You have data on the cloud. Some of it could be in your own data center, some of it could be on the public cloud, and some could be in the endpoint devices itself where employees carry. So security becomes a even more prominent uh, concern or an issue to be looked at. So it's important that once the digital transformation is put with the right process, the IT can actually focus on bringing the right fundamentals into the system. So their role even gets bigger once you have the decentralization strategy.
Okay, and in terms of ManageEngine's involvement, obviously you've carried out the survey, but as an organization, are you in the position to help people on this decentralization journey? What is it that you can do for organizations?
Okay, so if you look at ManageEngine, we have close to 45 plus products built focusing on IT infrastructure management. So when we started the organization, we built products which are simple to use, quick to deploy. But over a period of time, what we have done is we have made sure all these products have seamless and contextual integration, right from either having an endpoint management and security device, taking care of managing and securing devices used by the employees. We also have products to take care of specific IT security challenges, like providing privileged access or an event correlation software. And we also products to take care of the core IT in terms of monitoring the performance and availability of devices across the network. And we also have products to measure and track applications deployed on the cloud. So when we have all these products integrated and talk with each other, we make sure we give a holistic view for IT to look at what's happening on their network. So rather than they focus on the day-to-day activities, which to a greater extent is automated today, IT can actually focus on aligning their work more towards business rather than focusing on the infrastructure. So ManageEngine helps today in terms of organizations to put in digital transformation into system, where we help to monitor, manage, and measure on how the performance of IT evolves in terms of availability, security, and accessing data.
Okay, so I'm going to use the phrase IT operations. Is that a correct summarization? And also, I'm just thinking there are things like AI ops and observability. Is that part of what you do as well, or is that where are you with that?
Oh yes, we do. So we have our own artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques on all the products we built in ManageEngine. So we also help IT to automate a lot of the repetitive tasks. We also help IT to proactively manage the infrastructure, and we also help them to track and mitigate any security threats happening in the network. Yes, you are right.
Okay, so maybe finally, for folks, I mean, obviously the survey suggests that a lot of people are heading down this path already. So there may be some people still to do it, but even those that are doing it, often it doesn't necessarily deliver what they were expecting. So are there one or two bits of advice you'd give to people, wherever they might happen to be, assuming they haven't done it, finished and they're, completely successful, there's somewhere on that journey, what one or two pieces of advice would you give them as to, how best to go about it? For example, I mean, do you start small with a single application or department and roll out, or do you have to go, company wide to start with because you're obviously decentralizing everything? What bits of advice?
Right. So, in fact, if you look at the survey, almost 90% of the organizations have somewhere started the digital transformation journey, and more than 50% of it believe this leads to better innovation. So our recommendations or our guidelines would be, it has to be a well-planned, informed decision when it comes to taking a decentralized approach, because you also have to ensure you involve IT in the beginning stage itself at the time of innovation and not at the later stage. Because when you take the decentralized approach, you talk about a lot of having your own applications, Some of it could be in your data center, some of it could be on the cloud. And you also talk about a lot of the data accessible everywhere, because employees today still prefer to take the hybrid approach. I think having a planned and informed decision is very much important. Second, I think collaboration is very important when you take the decentralization strategy, because you need to have a clear collaboration across multiple teams. And thirdly, training is even more important, because in today's world, most of the organizations have already taken the approach of implementing AI and ML to repeat or to take care of the repetitive task. So you need to have a clear training program in place so that all employees go through the training, be it when it comes to automation or be it comes to following security practices. And collaboration and a planned informed decision or some of the recommendations we would give for any organization before they take on the approach of going into digital transformation.
Okay, well, Arun, it's been fascinating to talk to you today, and you've given us some great insights about the survey and more generally about IT decentralization stroke digital transformation. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure connecting with you today. I hope the information was useful. Of course, we are available in case if you need any more information on the survey or the reports, do reach out to the team. We'll be happy to share it with you.
Thanks again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.